What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Izzyverse. This is going to be a very good episode of the Izzyverse. We talk a little bit about the Lord of the Rings of Power, which is going to debut in just a couple of minutes. Really, in less than an hour, we're going to get to see the first episode on Amazon TV. So before we even do that, let's talk a little bit about a couple of plugs that I want to throw in there. Starting with next week, I will be at ZapCon. That's right, September 10th. I'll be at ZapCon for number 4 in Wayne, New Jersey. I'm really excited for this one. It's going to be a lot of good times, a lot of fun. Get to see a lot of my Jersey folks that's going to be there. Also, I want you guys to know that I have 2 affiliates. The first one, you guys are familiar with Comic Exposure. If you go to Comic Exposure, you can get 15% off using promo code Izzyverse. And actually, starting with today, BCW now, the place where you will go get your comic book supplies, card supplies, and a whole bunch of other stuff, as also now is an affiliate. And if you use the promo code Izzyverse, you get 10% off your entire purchase. Go check them out. They got a lot of good stuff. And trust me, when I say they have supplies, they got a lot of supplies. So with that said, I'm going to take this off. I'm going to bring in my guest before I reveal to you guys my big announcement. So let me bring in first a good friend of the channel. He's done plenty of shows with me. Andrew F. Rodriguez. Frank, what's going on, bro?
I'm doing fine. How you guys doing?
Good. And also with us, he's always with us in the Star Wars panel. This time we're going to be talking more about Lord of the Rings, and that is Roberto. What's going on?
Hey, how's it going? It's going good.
Good. All
I'm ready
right,
for
guys.
this.
Before we start talking about the Lord of the Rings of Powers, I have a huge announcement I want to share with everyone. This is the big one. And what I'm going to share with everyone is Izzy Fest. Izzy Fest is happening September 18th to the 24th. For those of you that are watching live right now, just to let you guys know, the alert is already out. The post has been made. And if you go to the Izzyverse, there's a form for you to fill out. And that's just my way of knowing what kind of prize you want, because I'm going to be giving away a prize a day for that week. So Izzy Fest, this is the first Izzy Fest within the Izzyverse. Izzy Fest happens every year, and wink, wink, you know what I'm talking about when you hear about Izzy Fest. But this year, I want to say thank you to everyone that subscribes to either YouTube, if you're subscribing to Instagram, Twitter account, TikTok, you name it, Facebook, to everyone that's in the Izzyverse. This is my way of saying thank you. I have a prize for each day. All you have to do is sign up and subscribe to the Izzyverse on YouTube. So, I want to show you guys a little bit about that. Let me just take off the banner, and I'm going to share with you what the form looks like, so you won't be intimidated by what you see. So, let's go ahead and show you this form. So, you guys can see the form right now. The form is very simple. I just ask for your name, your email. What type of giveaway do you want? I want to give you something that you want. So, is it a comic book related giveaway? Do you want something that's manga or anime related? Something that's wrestling related, or Star Wars? I got my Star Wars guys here. Sign up. Make sure you subscribe to the Izzyverse, because it is a requirement of it. And if you have a way to be contacted, if the best way for you to be contacted is by email, let me know by email. If it's Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, let me know and tell me what your handle is. That's all I ask for. I'm not asking for an address. I'm not asking for your personal information. All I want is a way to get a hold of you. And please fill out the form. It's going to help me help you know what to get and give you during that week. But hey guys, I got a lot of stuff planned. I already have a few things going on. First, I have a couple of signed comic books. I'm giving away some graded comic books, some slabs. I'm also giving away some statues, some figurines, and some other fun stuff like sketch comics. You might have seen the Spawn sketch comic by Nathaniel. That's going to be one of my gifts that I'm giving away for the giveaway. So share it. You guys are excited for Izzy Fest?
Yeah.
All right, let's get on to business, guys. Let's talk a little bit about the Lord of the Rings of Power. All right, Amazon Prime has given us the most expensive show in history. And it looks amazing, but is it amazing is the question, right? So this is our preview show. We're going to talk about what we know about Lord of the Rings already. We're going to talk a little bit about what we're expecting, and then when we finish, we're going to go watch that first episode, because by the time we're finished, we should be able to you should be able to see it. So come along, join along with us as we talk about Lord of the Rings. So, let's start with Andrew. Andrew, Lord of the Rings. Talk to
I,
me, man.
I was actually like out of the few Tolkien people like I've talked to, like I have a huge all my friends are like just big Tolkien fans, and of course if you're like me, play Dungeons and Dragons, you have a religiously like pedestal version of what Lord of the Rings is supposed to be and what the Hobbit's supposed to be. I like what I first initially saw was I love the artwork and I love like the aesthetic of it. They follow very close to what like Peter Jackson did for the first three movies, and I was just like really blown away what I'm seeing, and I could tell you why it's probably the most expensive. Most of that looks like practical effects and looks like they hired a lot of actors and they put their soul and money into like just pretty much coming out with a really good looking, aesthetically good looking fantasy. So yeah, I'm very excited. I know for a fact I only saw like 15 minutes of the first episode, and that's all I was allowed to watch. And I'm going to tell you right now, you can never judge a show from its first episode, but it is a very strong start. And I know for a fact that everywhere has been reported that Bezos' son said, "Don't f this up, Dad." Look, so is if Bezos is son's a big fan, and he's a big fan, I guess they're gonna make sure that it's gonna look proper. Um,
Cool. Roberto, what about you? You tell me about your love for Lord of the Rings.
Oh man. I actually should have started. It started with the movies. I remember seeing the movies for the first time, and like I never, heard of the books. I was like big Chronicles of Narnia fan, which I know C.S. Lewis and Tolkien, where
Buddy,
they worked a lot with each other, and they had this whole like friendship and this whole like kind of almost giving their both faith-based background, like this whole theology of world building and like what would happen in a whole other universe, the things that that they believed in our world. And it was just interesting, like seeing those movies and then seeing the Hobbit trilogy, and then I started to read, the books after that. And yeah, so I'm very excited. I mean, I played both of the the Lord of the Rings games that came up. Was a War of the Ring and the Shadow of
Shadow of
Mordor.
Mordor, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and I know those depth and history. I mean, and it's just interesting because when you look at it, like, yeah, there's the three books that everybody knows, the three movies, but there's volumes. Like this guy, you know, wrote with just intense imagery. And I remember we were starting to read the Silmarillion, and I'm like, I just okay. After seeing the Lord of the Rings films, just kind of like, how would you do that on screen? Because of the way he almost like the sounds had colors and things like that. So I don't know if we're gonna see any of that.
Yeah.
The intense imagery that you hear about, in the other books, that Tolkien wrote.
hmm So let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit more so about what we are expecting. Right. We don't we don't know what we haven't seen. So there's no way this is a review show. Instead, this is more of like our preview show of what we think is going to come. Why we're excited for it. First of all, as I mentioned, most expensive series ever. Right? No one has topped it. Game of Thrones tried to get close to it, but even they couldn't top it, right? We got that Jeff Bezos money that's going on there, right? So we're going back to Middle Earth, and here we're going to be going to the second age of Middle Earth, right? This is the time before the Ring of Power,
Yeah.
the one ring to rule them all. Instead, this is where we have the making of the actual rings of powers and how it's growing. So, um, Andrew, walk with me, talk to me, tell me a little bit about what you
Well, here
understand about this
you have
particular
like this.
age.
Yeah, you have like this great second age of Middle Earth, where uh, first Gandalf's the wizards were present, but they were pretty much like uh, chroniclers of the entire tales of the age. What I find it very interesting is that you're going to see young Galadriel. You're going to see like uh, you may actually get to see young
Yeah, we're
Elrond.
gonna see a young Elrond,
You're going to see like
a Balrog, a young
yeah, you're going
Balrog.
to see about, but you can also see like you're going to see Mordor, and you're going to see like all these different places, like even the Lonely Mountain before it was like taken over. If we're thinking about the Second Age, this is when all the warring factions, all the warring dwarves are on the zenith. Elves were on zenith. They weren't leaving for the Isles yet. What I love about it is like you actually have a feeling where the realm of man was just developing. So you're going to see like you know how we watched the first movie and all these places were ruins. You're going to see what they look like before these places became ruined. You're going to see how the kings of men actually develop, and I can't wait to see how much money they poured into just like because the reason why it's very expensive because you're talking about again a lot of good aesthetics, a lot of good of like working with practical material and stuff like that. I cannot wait because I'm not even sure Hobbiton is actually mentioned in this second age. I know it's uh so if you do see Hobbiton, it's just gonna look pretty much the same with except for the tree. You probably actually see Weathertop, you know the show Weathertop where Frodo gets stabbed. That was an actual fort. So you're actually gonna see the Rangers of the time manning that. So I hope I hope they just sink their teeth into it.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, and
it's going to be a lot of wars. There's just going to be
yeah,
lot of wars right now.
one thing I do know is that they're gonna focus on Numenor,
Yep.
if I got it right. Numenor,
Yep.
which at this moment is a super advanced and it's the greatest kingdom, right? It's the humans at its height. It's
Hmm.
where the man is at his best or
That's yep.
becoming their worst.
These are the
Um,
guys before the rapes. This is like
mhm,
Ezekiel's heirs, and stuff like yeah. This is where
mhm,
Strider's kingdoms from. The also the half elves, if you want to call it like that,
mhm.
because they're half
Yeah,
elves.
because we're gonna get obviously we're getting elves, we're getting dwarves, we're somewhat getting hobbits, but we're not getting hobbits in their traditional sense.
No,
We're gonna
no.
get the precursor to the hobbits, right? So, Roberto, what can you tell me that you understand right now of this particular version of Lord of the Rings of Power, this age? What do you know?
Yeah. Um, I'll be honest, there's a little bit that's how much there's the history that's gleaned from like poured into Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War, where there were these alliances and the whole like kind of the betrayal of Sauron, and
Mhm,
you know, I think it's gonna be interesting to see. You hear about this little, you hear about it in Lord of the Rings, and it's how much craftiness that it had to go for him to kind of seduce almost everyone, the kingdoms of men, that create all these extra rings of power. Like, what was the impetus for this?
mhm,
And then, even then creating the one ring in secret, I don't even know, how much they may even try, that whole everything that happened in the game may just be like kind of legends, not part of the actual thing since it was, made up for the game. But is there anything from that aspect of, who was there anybody working with Sauron, to develop this ring, kind of all that
Hmm.
build up.
Yeah, and it's one of those things is like you kind of have with this particular world. Obviously it's a prequel of a prequel, right? Because before the Hobbit. But
Yeah.
what you have is just a world being built like from its earlier days, right? It's the second age, so obviously there's got to be a first age, but the second age is really the age that kind of like starts building where we end up learning to become what's eventually will be the Lord of the Rings, which will be the one ring of power, right? So we have the formation of who Sauron will become, right? This evil king. And what we also get to see more about characters that we've seen in the Lord of the Rings, right? So we've seen Elrond, we've seen Gandria, but we're gonna see younger versions of them, specifically when it comes to Gandria, right? Gandria is one of those characters that has a very strong story to be told here in this particular show because we're going to learn about her brother as well. So, Andrew, what can you tell me a little bit about Gandria, who is in this show?
Well, compared to the books, like I mean, sadly they don't. They do talk about her, but sadly it's not enough information. But enough information. It's just enough information to tell her that her in her role in that war. The fact that her brother was lost, and you actually have all these families, but she was the one that actually held the woods together. She was pretty much like the last of the heir. So like that line of elves, like she was like her last heir of that people. Now the awesome thing is how they're showing her the warrior side because you know she was dangerous, right? Like even in the book, it even determined like out of the very few characters who were female in Lord of the Rings that were dangerous, like they were powerful and dangerous for a reason. You're gonna see her like, and we really had to like really sink our teeth into how dangerous she was, like how much of a warrior she was. So we're painting really almost a brand new picture of her
Hmm.
with what we've gotten. To 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 uh to Tolkien's credit, we don't like female characters at that time had more of a mythical, like they have more of a mythical lore to them. They were fighters, but they you don't see that.
Hmm.
But they were painted as very honest and yet very dangerous for reasons. And you're going to see why. I can't wait to see fight scenes with her. I can't see her like her managing like the rings, and also finally getting a ring of power. That is going to be because unfortunately we're going to see the decay. Like
Hmm.
you have to show the decay of man. You have to show the witch kings. You have to show all those guys who finally get the rings. You have to see how the dragon, not dragon, the dungeon, not the dungeon, the dwarven lords going into their dungeons, into their realms. Once they got their ring, they just was like, okay, we're gonna hide. So
Yeah.
like you're gonna see a deterioration of sadly you're gonna see the deterioration of the alliance between man, dwarf, and elf. And I'm gonna tell you right now, like it really wasn't like the way they wrote it and the way that the books wrote it and the way that the show's portraying is like they didn't expect Sauron to do this. It's like it came out of left field. Like
Hmm.
it's like basically yes, I know I have this like allure. I have this like Sauron had like this magnetism. He had like this like Ori process where he could just get his points across to people, and then he screwed them all over. You're just gonna see. So it's like it's supposed to show like from everything being good to like just the decay. So I think that's
Yeah.
why. And here's the thing, like I think that's why a lot of fans don't get that. Like the Lord of the Second Era was the first and second age were like the mythic age. It's like we thinking of like Atlantis. It's basically we're thinking of like old Roman empires that were at their zenith, and now all of us like Europeans just live in the shadows and ruins of a greater society.
Mhm.
And so we're going to see that society fall. And that's what the cool thing about the Rings of Power, because we're going to see just nothing about, like, we're just going to see the whole thing, like, you're
Yeah,
going to see how it falls.
yeah, and that's the thing to note is what's great about prequels like this is that you already kind of the ending, right?
Yeah.
But it's intriguing how we get to that ending, and
Yeah.
that's what we want. It was the same thing with Star Wars, because Star Wars takes a lot of Lord of the Rings, right? Let's admit it, right? But what Star Wars
How
did,
dare you? And this scene, I didn't.
just saying, all right. But when we start talking a little bit about how it was, we wanted to see how Anakin becomes Vader. That was the whole story.
Yeah.
And here it's more about trying to find out where we get that one ring to rule them all. What was the story behind the one ring, and why was that one ring was the one ring of power? So here, instead of getting the one ring, we're learning about the rings before the one ring, and eventually the growth and the creation of the one ring of power to rule them all. So Roberto, talk to me a little bit about your understanding about that.
Yeah, so I mean, I know a little bit of, the fact that Sauron was kind of like the lieutenant of, and even a bigger, bad villain, Morgoth, who was his first name was Melkor. He was like this, almost like a semi-demigod, angelic being, I forget what the forgive me, I don't recall the specific like name of his race,
Yeah.
but like, he was this big bad, and this is so maybe even like how the reference of like, hey, if he was the lieutenant for this big bad, how does he convince everyone, like, hey, we need to do this? But I think you're gonna see a little bit of like kind of a little bit like the Age of Ultron, like the little bit of like the who is gonna be the one who's gonna kind of almost be like that Tony Stark of like, I see the danger coming, and so therefore we need to do this thing that seems good, like it's kind of like the road to hell's paved with the best and good intentions. So who's going to be the one leading that charge that says, you know what, we really need to do this thing because we don't want a repeat of that big event, and who is that person who's kind of almost going to be more tragic because at some point, they're going to see the error of their ways, at some point, it's really going to bite them because they believed wholeheartedly in like, hey, we all need to have rings of power. We all need to, because it's not just, I think, even Sauron convincing someone. You always feel like there's got to be somebody else who's like, their desire to protect people from evil is going to lead them to being almost a champion of this thing that we all know is not good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when I was a kid, I had to look it up. He's an Ainur. An Ainur, these are like how we call them, like what we call titans at the time, or godlike beings that like, yeah. And I want to see how he looks. I want to see how, like, please tell me he's not going to be a Belrog. He has to look like a real godlike dude. I want to see him just walking the field, just wrathing. I'm sorry. I just want to see what the most expensive battles look like. If you're going to pour this much money, yeah, I want to see that godlike being crash into the ground. I want to see him like lay waste in cities for like seconds. We're talking about you're fighting godlike. It's like, let's everyone team up against Superman and Goku and let's, and just for good measures, just throw in some like more wizardly powers and let's see what's going to happen. Like I just want to see how he looks. Like, I'm sorry to say, like, people are going to be like, well, what about the story? I was like, I want to see where they threw all that money in. It's like when you watch the first time the Superman animated, which was at the time the most expensive Superman ever made. And you actually was it the Philistine? I'm sorry, you know the old school Superman where they animated and it was just like the they
Oh yeah,
it
yeah,
was,
from the
yeah
1940s.
it was from the like it was the most expensive animation ever.
Mm-hmm.
DC gave these guys a ridiculous price and goes here, and so you got to this day that Superman.
Max Fleischer, you're talking about.
Max Flexures, thank you. Oh
Yeah.
God, see this is what happens when you have like mind farts for a second. But yeah, Max Fleischer's Superman. At the time, that was the most they used the most crowning achievement of animation at the time. And now they're saying we've came across the most expensive show using the most expensive equipment, using the most expensive makeup artist, craftsman, CGI. So it has when you're saying the most expensive, I want to see if their money, if they put
Putting
that
the money where the mouth is.
Yeah, I want to see if they put that. Right now, I love the promos. I love the artwork. I see but now it's the proof of the pudding. I want to see devastation. I want to see I don't want to see clips of things where like they give you clips of a battle and then they talk about a battle that happened. Like, I'm not looking at you, Game of Thrones. I am looking at you, Game of Thrones. But yeah, I want that. If you're gonna give me a dragon, I want to see that dragon like a smog like dragon laying waste to I need to see that, and I need to see where that money came from. Like, I don't want to be like, oh yeah, we just tricked Bezos. Here's
Well, let's talk a little bit about this character here, because every time we see this character, which I know who he is, and we'll explain who he is in a minute. Every time we see this character, we see him in two scenes. We see him here, or we see him laying dead. So, who is this guy? Guys, tell me who this screaming person is. I know who it is. So you're not sure who it is, Andrew?
I know that's Galadriel's brother, but
that's Galadriel's brother, exactly.
Right, but I'm gonna tell you right now, he had a nice scene in the book, this big of a paragraph. So I don't know.
I don't think he's gonna have a lot of screen time either. Here.
He's gonna be like, "Hi, I'm his brother." Oh!
Because that's always because he's supposed to be mauled by a bear or something like that, by a wolf, right? He gets mauled by a wolf, and eventually that's what kills him.
He's supposed to be mauled by a dire wolf from just ripped apart,
Yeah,
what's it, a warg? What's it called, a warg?
But this is Glandriel's brother, and he's very important to her future because, again, who was she before the person we met in Lord of the Rings? She was very different. Obviously, she had that warrior spirit, but something about her changes because of this death. And this death I think, will be part of what makes the show come alive, I guess, to say the least. But yeah, I think his amount of screen time is very minimal.
Well, right? And I also wonder if is he older? Was he? Because she's queen. Mm-hmm. So is it a matter of even just his death that pushes her to be in this place of power where she wouldn't have been before? Yeah, she was a badass and a warrior, but never in line for the throne or something like that. I don't. Maybe that's the other thing we see is the push into leadership.
Yeah, because I kind of believe when you read it's basically all the elves fought, male and female. It's almost quite modern thinking if you think about it. It's a modern day army. So you actually have everyone fights, no one stays in the and the elves are those type of dudes. Everyone, man and female, put on that armor and they walked into the steps of Mordor. Every single elf was there. They never discriminate with that. Mm-hmm. What you're gonna see is then if a family member perishes who is he's been of course, because usually the first male heir or the more stronger heir is being he's being geared to become the next king, so he's going to have all this responsibility.
Yeah.
Then that heir dies, so you're left with another heir that you need to raise just in case, because you're the last. Like, she doesn't have. There's just both of them. That's it. The elf king only had two, him and Gandria. Gandria's the last of her people, and so like that's to me that's like the last of that bloodline. So that's a little bit more of a that's a little more urgency. You're gonna see that. You're gonna have to see. Unfortunately, you're gonna have to see that weird thing where you're like, you can't fight anymore because your brother's gone, and now you have to be, it's all that chess pieces stuff. It's all that chess piece.
Mm-hmm.
You're too valuable as a kingmaker, or as a king or a queen, to be in that field. You have to pull it up, but you still have to fight a war. So you can have that. I can't wait when they show what she can do. Like I said, I saw 15 minutes, and it's basically that guy going, "Oh, it's her brother." Like 15 minutes of her, "Oh no, what's going on with me?"
Yeah.
Chop.
And what about Elrond? Because Elrond's the other character that we've seen before, that we've seen him in the Lord of the Rings. What can you tell me about Elrond? Obviously, he's a young politician here. He didn't really shy that far away from being a politician afterwards. But with
Yeah.
Elrond, what's different about him here?
Well, I know he's not fully elf. I think he's part human, right? And so there's I wonder if you're gonna see that aspect of he's kind of two worlds, which maybe leads him into being a politician, kind of like Spock, where
Yeah.
his father or mother, had relations with someone who was not, and it's and maybe you even see the reason why he is and whether what was the desire of his parents in fact that, hey, we're going to choose to have in a sense a mixed race child who is going to have all the abilities of an elf, living forever, have this role of power. And how does that play? Because in you see it a little bit in Lord of the Rings. There's this kind of like prejudice against other races. The dwarves and the elves don't necessarily get along. You see with like Gimli and Legolas, and he's like, oh, I don't want to, they have this tension, and then at the end they're like, well, I'd rather die side by side with a friend. So to the tension of, hey, I'm here, I'm half elf, half human. Is he going to really be accepted by anybody?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we know at the end, like, he is at the end of like the final battle, seeing, at the spot where he sees, in a sense, the true fall of man, where they refuse to destroy the One Ring. But so kind of like he's got to, see in his progression of what leads him to even that point of being the one who had the voice of influence that tragically could not stop, the ring from corruption.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of sad, really, because if you're gonna do like Elrond like justice, you're gonna pretty much have a guy who trusts humans and then gets betrayed. It's just kind of sad, really, because we know the books. Is Isidro didn't throw the ring into the fire, and so like because of that moment, he saw he was like,
he saw the worst of man. He got to
saw
see
the worst of man there, and then he saw the rise of the ring race. He saw it all. Like he was like, this effing guy. All he had to do was go.
Yeah, because he was the most optimistic out of all of them, I would say.
Yeah, he was. It's gonna be again. It's gonna. you're gonna see a lot of sadness. So like, we know what's gonna happen. We're gonna see, you have to show them like a very upbeat, uplifting, almost like childlike elf. You're gonna see a guy who's Mr. Positivity, and then let me tell you something, guys. He just does that, hits a pack of smokes and starts smoking about the old war stories kind of dude. Like, he's gonna be like that vet. Like he'd be like, yeah, I don't. Oh, I used to really adore humans, but man, I got some stories to tell you.
Yeah, and we have some other new characters coming in here. The one characters I really wanna talk a little bit more about are the dwarves, right? So let's talk a little bit about the dwarves. We see here Princess Disa. That's the third character here. That's the one that's wearing the gold necklace. Um, what's the story with the dwarves right now? Where are the dwarves in this whole story?
Hiding.
Mhm.
That's that's the real story. In the books, they're hiding. They have their own conflicts. They have their own. They're just in their holes making money. And there's a bunch of cool stories of the second age, and it's all about how they stay in their holes and just made this awesome armor, and are only called when it's the most dire. They're only called when it's the most dire situation. So
Yeah, because we do see the formation of that armor that you mentioned that Frodo eventually wears, that chainmail. So we're gonna start seeing a little bit more about that
yeah,
particular armor. I forgot what it's called. I don't remember the name of the.
Mithril. Sorry, Mithril.
Yes, yes, thank you. So we'll start seeing the formation of that, and then there's another group of individuals who, as I mentioned earlier, were the precursors to the hobbits. Right, that's who we see in that young lady that's right there, and also in the middle, towards the left hand side. And who are they?
Those are Smeagol's people, the river folk, right?
Mhm.
They're supposed to be Smeagol's people, like
Yeah,
Gollum's. Before Gollum became Gollum, I think those are his people, right? They're the river people. I don't think they're hobbits. If
no,
they
they're
are
not
hobbits,
hobbits.
I think they're the river folk, the people who are pretty much they're halfling in the halfling races, but they're not the hobbits. Hobbits are
Okay.
usually like, yeah. But I can't wait. Those guys are supposed to be very playful. They're supposed to be like very loving and stuff like that. But again, I'm waiting to see the show, and it's like about
Yeah.
39.
Don't worry, we're getting there. We're getting there. We're gonna get ready. Get your popcorn ready, and all that good stuff. Yeah, because they're definitely the precursors to what we will eventually know as the Hobbits.
Yeah,
And just like the Hobbits, they're a very quiet, playful, fun-loving individuals who really just want to be chill. They just want to chill.
Yeah.
They're not adventurers. They're just home folks. They're like farmers, really, when you think about it, right? Roberto, what can you tell me about your understanding of these individuals, if you know anything about them?
Um, Kind of just what Andrew mentioned, but kind of even thinking like where if they're the precursors to hobbits, what you always see hobbits as they were the peaceful, naive, but almost innocence in Middle
Hmm.
Earth.
Yeah.
So if this is, they're probably going to represent that. So it's the innocence of during this time, during the Second Age, and kind of that push where how much can you protect your innocence
Hmm.
when the world around you is being corrupted, and does it lead to, hey, this group is, hey, we're just going to go find the Shire, and it's a little bit more isolated, and we don't want to be away, or is there going to be a group that engages? Because obviously, like you see in with the Shire, like there's the groups that are a little bit closer towards
Hmm.
society, like the Prancing Pony, like that, there was some hobbits who ran that, so who chooses kind of like, actually, it's because we were just saying like Lancaster County, you have the Amish, and there's some people who they're setting up shops. They have to be. Then you have some groups who are like, we're gonna stay as far away from technology and modernization and things like that. So is that even gonna be the tension among them of like, hey, the world's changing. Are we gonna change with it?
Hmm.
How much are we gonna allow ourselves to be dragged into? the wars and the
Yeah,
things of men, because it kind of seems like men are usually the ones who kind of screw things up and get involved and meddle and want to
Hmm.
push the boundaries.
yeah, like
Yeah.
an isolation. They're pretty much like isolationists, right? That's their mentality. They stay away from everything. They're very neutral. They just stay in their stay in their own lane, chilling out. And once in a while, one of them will leave the Shire just to bring some stories in, and that's it. Like, and most of the time, their stories is like, "Hey, I went to that field over there and found like a pot of gold underneath this burrow, and I got chased by this undead thing." Like literally, that's what happened in the first Lord of the Rings books, where they don't mention that Frodo does find like a burrow, almost like think of it like Skyrim, all those
Hmm.
burrows. Like they go in, you see all these like undead kings coming up to life. They actually wrote that in the book. So, so like Hobbiton and everything, like in the northern lands near, I believe, it's near the woods. What's the name of that woods? God damn. Why am I blanking? I should have my map right behind me. My big little rings map right behind me. But the Misty Mountains and stuff like that. Like, yeah, that area used to be all about. That used to be all kingdoms and kings, all these like barbarian looking tribes. They're gone. So I can't. You're supposed to have seriously. If you think of the game Skyrim, and that's the only way I could think about it. Like there are certain parts of how, like Lord of the Rings, that should look like Skyrim. It's supposed to be like really Vikingish looking men. Like it really has to. You really have to have like a precursor to Viking guys. Like it's when they in the first era was just like gods fighting each other with like raw power,
Hmm.
and like second era is where all the interesting uh, cities pop up. But what I love about the hobbits, and especially the Merfolk, they stayed the term they stayed in their lane is applied to them. Just they were the best farmers that you never heard of, the best partiers that you never heard of. You know? Yeah, yeah. And if you go to the Prancing Pony, yeah, it's like they're like the best drinkers that no one ever heard of. But I can't wait. I really, yeah. I
So
hope
so we go. So I'm sorry. So we
I hope it's a
go
good balancing
from
act.
the fun-loving, who will eventually become the Hobbit,
Yeah,
to our villains. And here we haven't been able to see who our true villain is. We know who our villain will be, right? So we
yeah,
know we're leading towards Sauron, but we are also listening to Cerenbor, right? Cerenbor, who crafts the rings for Sauron. So I'm
yeah.
Yes.
assuming we're going to get that story. So with that said, and they were the Hartfoots, by the way, the Hartfoots, which were nomadic. That's their name,
Mm-hmm.
Hartfoots. Um, we're going to get to the story of the rings being formed. And as you said, they were formed out of what was believed to have been a necessity. Really wasn't. It was more of a way to find to find control. Am I
Yeah.
right by saying that?
Yeah, it's a WMD. They built the rings as a deterrent to like say, okay, we have powers now. Everyone has their own little powers. Everyone gets their nukes, and we have like this what we call armed peace. That you have somebody with all the codes in one ring. So if you want to talk about like that kind of a parallel, yeah, they built it so it's like, hey, you guys are fighting. We need a be all end all of all this fighting. Here's the ring,
Hmm.
and you guys are connected by this. How we say this spiritual slash information slash uh, where you guys can like have their grievances. Oh, and by the way, haha, I control you all now. So like that is what those things are. Like the Ring of Powers were just exactly what they're. Weapons of mass destruction, uh, WMDs, our nuclear program in fantasy form, and everybody thinks about that in any kind of war. you need the biggest, better toys just to fight like bigger, better monsters. And there are more. That's another thing. Second Earth has to have so many orcs. Like it should be like filthy with orcs and goblins and all these other weird things that that you saw in the first Hobbit. It's just supposed to be weird. It's supposed to be like full of like still demons still walking on Earth, like Balrog. Like, yeah, I run this little forest area. Like it's supposed to have been like lousy with that.
And it is going to be interesting because I think when they talk about the orcs, I think it's Saruman describing the origin of the orcs. They were fallen elves, and so it's going to be interesting. I think even tragically, who are these elves that fall away and get twisted, and like probably the heartbreak of like, I mean, obviously the sentient, they have conversations, but to see maybe, do they see like their former brother or sister or cousin on the battlefield, and like, you have an elf that says like, oh my gosh, here's it's an unelven named Jimmy. This is my cousin Jimmy who's now an orc,
Yeah.
But like how tragic is like, I have to now slay you in battle because you are a shell of what you once were, and just.
Hey Peter, what's going on, man?
Yeah.
Sorry, I got everything pro wrestling saying what's up. Just wanted to give a shout out. Yeah. Okay, let's wrap things up because we're gonna get ready to watch our show here. So first and foremost, since Peter is online, I just want to give a shout out to another wrestling promotion that's coming out, and they are heading out to the Bronx, baby. We're gonna get a wrestling show coming up soon, so I definitely want to give a shout out to us that. More information to come about the wrestling show. That's going to be a part of it. I plan on going to the wrestling show. I'm excited for it to have a show in the Bronx. That's going to be fun. Yeah, it's going to be fun. So I'll get more information about the wrestling show that's happening soon. But with that said, guys, how excited are you?
Very excited.
Yep.
To hype it up.
Yep.
I've actually avoided seeing a lot of the trailers because I was like, I heard a lot of the mixed reviews, and I said, you know what? I'm just a little bit gonna go in fresh eyes. I don't want to see something and see people's comments in the bottom, like,
Yeah.
Hey man, right? We're living in great times where they actually have the cash and money and know-how and the craftsmen to actually make a Lord of the Rings. I'm just happy to be alive in this time where we get to see it. Like, I'm not going to give. If it's a really bad story, I'll give it a bad review. But if the story is decent, I'm not just not going to give it a bad review. I'm going to like it. Like, but yeah, I stay away from the critics, even though right now I'm a critic or weird.
Well, you're not critiquing anything that hasn't shown, right?
Yeah.
All right, guys, let's wrap this up. Let's start with you, Roberto. Where can we find you, Roberto?
You can actually find me on Instagram at Caro_DIBRO. I do some toy photography. I actually just started partnering with a guy who runs kind of like a Star Wars rumors site and kind of showing up what's coming in stock and what's coming up, called the Star Wars Toy Collector. So he's on Facebook and Instagram, and so there's always, if you're interested in what's new in Star Wars toys, follow him. So I'm helping him out, with some of the promo stuff for that. Yeah,
you gotta bring him out here, man. We gotta talk a little bit about it, especially with Ando coming around. Andrew,
yes.
where can we find you, bro?
Oh, hi. Yeah. Of course, everyone can find my work on Andrew Frank Rodriguez Art on Instagram and Andrew Frank Rodriguez Art in my Facebook page. And you can find me in my Twitter account at AFPVR.
Right.
When you're looking for any good Dungeons and Dragons material, I'm also in the DM guilds. I have 2 books there now one that I've actually was the art director in. And fortunately for me, I am doing other books later. So I'm still in the process of creating another Dungeons and Dragons style RPG book This I play tested a game called Bloodlines of Black Magic by J.R.R. I'm very proud of being a part of that team. I'm very proud to being with the Storm Bunny Studios company right now. And right now we're just waiting for it to be sold because we're doing certain modules. And I'm also working on another Dungeons and Dragons module with a good friend of mine, and I'm in the process of creating my own comic book, which is going to be coming probably in the later of the year. Like I am full fledging I'm full fledged going into trying to get another comic book out for you guys and trying to get another game for you guys, so you guys can play.
Awesome. So if you look right there in the link, I just added it on Roberto's link to his Instagram for the Star Wars toy collector. Guys, it's been a blast. Before we go, as I wanted to mention to you guys earlier, as I mentioned it before, I'll just show it one more time. Here is the wrestling show that's happening. It's happening November 4th, Friday, November 4th, St. Helena's Catholic School. It's always a Catholic school. What's up with that? Why is wrestling always in a Catholic school? I don't know. It's weird. But with the
We support
information
wrestling, man. We
right?
wrestle our
We are
demons every day.
wrestling. Once the information comes out, I will let you guys know. We'll try to see what we could do. But it's WAW. We are wrestling. Go check it out. It's gonna be fun. Indie wrestling is always fun, guys. And as always, guys, remember next week I'm gonna be in ZapCon. Go check that out. It's in Wayne, New Jersey, at the Wayne PAL. So that's the police athletic lead. I'll be there September 10th. Don't forget, you can get 10% off using Izzyverse for BCW supplies. Get your supplies there. It's a great place to get your supply. I've gotten bags and boards from that spot before, and now you can get 10% off, and I get a little cut of that commission too while I'm at it. At the same time, Comic Exposure. My boys at Comic Exposure, they're going to be giving me a lot of giveaways for me to give away to you guys because Izzy Fest is coming. September 18th to the 24th, we got a prize for everybody. There's comic books, wrestling related, anime, you name it. I'm going to have it. Sign up for the Izzy Fest. Sign up. It's started already. It's already on Twitter. It's already on Instagram. It's already on Facebook. So go sign up. Everybody is part of it. Go get your family and friends to sign up as well because the more the merrier, guys. With that said, Robert, Andrew, it's time for us to go see the Rings of Power, guys.
Yes.
Until next time, guys. I will see you on the Izzyverse, which we got a big wrestling weekend, so I might have a show coming up either tomorrow or the next. So be on the lookout for that, guys. I'll see you on the Izzyverse. Excelsior!
See you guys. Peace.
See ya.